Carryover.
Dover is now the closest.
We are now online. All right, everyone. We are now live from not New York City. All right, everyone. We are now live.
Your sound is
From not New York City. All right, everyone. So there's no Stephen Colbert or anybody here. Your sound from not New York City. Can we?
Yeah, I think she took care of it.
I need some instruction. Are we good to go?
Jerry, we're good to go, right?
Yes. Great, okay. Welcome to our
If you think you
Tuesday.
could be serious, ask me to call emergency services or.
This is Monday that has bled into Tuesday. Shut up, Siri. That's not a nice word, but anyone else say that? Shh. Sweetie, take a nap. Okay. Welcome to Tuesday, March 11th, Finance Committee meeting. We're going to call to order, beginning with Joanne.
Joanne O'Brien.
Molly Rogers, Linda Caputo.
Becky Bless, administrative staff.
Andrea Dish, Business Manager.
Dave Dostie, Facility Director.
Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Karen Moody, Building Principal at Laura Richards School.
Tiffany Cockrell, Principal at Princeton Randolph Consolidated School.
Katie Gould, Principal at Helen Thompson School.
Sarah Bolduc, Director of Special Services.
Sarah Sims, Principal at Gardner Regional Middle School.
Nate Stubbard, Athletic Director.
Josh Farr, Adult Ed Director.
Perfect. All righty. Thank you all for being here. We, the first item on the agenda is the discussion of the 25-26 MSAD11 budget and our initial overview. So I'm going to turn that over to the overview creator.
So I have shared with all of you a document, or actually several documents in Google Drive. There are also copies of the documents that I'm going to review tonight. So this is our first glance at our FY26 budget. We have not made any adjustments to the budget, even though we have had several conversations, or we've had conversations with administrators regarding their budget, but Pat thought it was important that you see the budget as submitted to see where we are. So I'm going to try to follow along. I am not very good about sharing with the public. So if any of you find that I'm not turning the pages or we're not where we need to be, let me know. So where are we? So as is, the budget as submitted, we are up 8.37% or $2.7 million. And you have in front of you it broken down by expenditure articles, which is how the state requires that we break down the budget when presenting it to the voters. So that is the summary of where we are. I have also attached a worksheet based on this budget as presented, what the amount would be to the local taxpayers. So basically, the budget as we just saw, if we went out to voters, it would be a $2.9 million increase across the 4 towns, or a 22% increase. I'm just going to go through the worksheet with you so that you can see how this works. In the corner, oops, I'm going to use my mouse. In the corner, I have updated our revenues that I expect to come in from other places other than the Department of Education. So again, I am hoping that we'll be able to use that $700,000 in the special ed reserve account that we talked about last year. Mm-hmm. We have not needed to tap into it, and it is still sitting there. So I'm hoping that we will be able to use that again to balance our budget. The next item is our carry forward 1.3 million, or 1,325,000. That's the amount that we always apply to carry forward. That money comes from unspent funds or unallocated fund balance from previous budget years. It can only be used to buy down the local share in subsequent budget years. So it's not like we could use funds left over from last year's budget and buy something that was not authorized. Let me rephrase that. We cannot use additional funds more than we were approved to use by the voters at referendum. So we basically can't spend more than our budget. So even though we have additional carry forward or unallocated fund balance, we are not allowed to use it.
So just to be clear, we are not allowed to use 1,000,003.
We are not allowed to use more than the voters authorized us to use at the referendum.
So, okay, different question, then, just for clarity.
So this will be in the when we present this to the budget, when we present this to the voters, that 1.3 million from unallocated fund balance is included as part of this budget.
Because it's part of
equation.
what we've already budgeted. It's already in there.
Well, it's because it's part of it's the revenue that supports the budget as created. So that
Yes.
is helping to fund the budget presented.
Yes.
So yes.
We're saying the same thing.
Yep.
Just wanted to be sure.
Nope.
Thank you.
The next line is state agency client tuition. These are SAC funds that we get from the state. These are students who are in our district, who are wards of the state, and our special ed department gets to bill the state and they reimburse us for those expenditures for those students. Tuition estimate, we talked briefly about tuition students and superintendent's agreements. So the difference is superintendent's agreements is an agreement between two superintendents, an outgoing superintendent and an incoming superintendent. And those students, we get to count on our ED 279, which is the state funding formula. Tuition students are different. We are basically we are sending a tuition invoice to either another district or parents. So based on the tuition rate that is set by the state this year, this is what I anticipate receiving in tuition for next year. Interest, this is the interest earned for the year from our accounts at Kennebec Savings Bank. I expect approximately 300,000 in interest, so I'm hoping that maintains. There's a lot of things going on with the economy, so that is what I am predicting that we will bring in. Miscellaneous revenue, we always have miscellaneous revenue. We don't have a lot of miscellaneous revenue. That obviously you can see there's only 5,000, but there's usually a little bit of money that trickles in, and that's I'm also going to use that to balance this budget. Transportation fees, these are the funds from mainly the PTAs for the field trips for elementary and some secondary students, mainly elementary. As you remember, the district does not fund field trips for our students. So other organizations pay the district to provide transportation for those field trips, and that is what I am expecting to receive. Athletic gate receipts, 18,000. This is the amount collected at football games, our boys and girls basketball games at the high school, as well as admissions for these plays. So that's where that comes from. And the last item is CES, renewable energy credits, RECs. So you've heard me talk in a prior meeting that we are part of a consortium as far as solar energy, and we get rebates on our energy. We also receive renewable energy credits, and when they're sold, and we get to, in addition to the credits we receive on our CMP bills, CES also sells our RECs for us for money, and that's what I'm anticipating that we are going to bring in for that. Up in the corner, you will see the budget. Up in the right-hand corner, you will see the budget for last year. You will see the budget as initiated for this year. You see the difference in both dollar and in percentage. You will see that I have reduced that amount by the miscellaneous revenue that I just went over with you. The total of that miscellaneous revenue was approximately $2.7 million, leaving a net budget to be funded of $32.4 million. The line below directly comes from the ED 279. So for those of us who joined our conversation for the state subsidy, the 24,205,000 is the amount from the ED 279. The state contribution is $16,011,518.51. It's approximately $200,000 less than we received in the current year. So as we discussed, our subsidy is being reduced. The required local contribution from that ED 279 is $8,193,520. So if you subtract the state contribution and the required local contribution, it leaves an additional amount to be raised by locals of $8,206,884.46. This does not include adult ed. That is a separate spreadsheet. So this is just the district's general budget. So if you look below, that contribution is broken out by the percentage of the total valuation of the 4 communities. Again, that is listed on the ED 279. And for your, and to help you, I actually on the back of the sheet for those who have printed copies, I actually included the page from the ED 279 that shows the percentage for each town. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see that it matches my spreadsheet, which is a good thing, and the required local contribution. The bottom bar, you will see that based on this amount and the revenue that I anticipate, it would be a $1,049,750.39 increase for the city of Gardner, a $635,894 increase for the town of Pittston, 21.46%. Randolph, an increase of $246,913, an increase of 19.86%. And West Gardner, it would be a $1,025,085 increase, an increase of 23.84%. Any questions about anything that you're looking at so far? I know, it's a lot. And I'd be happy if anybody has questions, specifically board members. If you have questions, just reach out to me. Or if you would like to ask now, I'm happy to answer. I am not going to go over this sheet. I just pulled out a sheet in the ED 279. I just wanted you to see where those figures came from. It's for your information only. I am not going to review this because we did a review of the subsidy formula last meeting. Sean, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. So the next document that we're going to look at is a broad overview of where our increases are coming from. And again, I thought it would be helpful, to do this by expenditure articles. So I went through and looked at the big items. I did not look at every pencil and piece of paper that we'd be here all night. What you're looking at is just broad strokes of the increases and decreases. So hang on. So regular instruction, which includes all of the students who do not have IEPs. Those are special ed plans, individualized education plans. So it's regular instruction, regular classroom instruction. That particular expenditure article is up 6.52% or $841,351. This article does not include any new positions as far as teachers or staff members. Salaries are up $489,834. You can see that I increased substitutes by 36,000. Since COVID, we have a lot of staff absences. And while I resisted for years when we increased the amount that we were paying subs per day, I resisted increasing the amount that we were budgeting, but we have reached a point that we really need to increase the amount that we are spending for subs. Health and dental insurance. I know that I talked to an executive session about health and dental insurance, but that is an increase in regular instruction. Now, this is just regular instruction only. It's an increase of $243,360. And for those of you who weren't in the executive session, well, I guess that would be a lot of people.
Most of all of you.
Yeah, we received a letter from the MEA Benefits Trust that basically oversees the plan that we have. It's basically the plan for all school districts. And I don't usually see this kind of email or correspondence from Anthem. Typically, the first correspondence that we see from them is when they give us what the high percentage is going to be. So we received this email from Jennifer Kent, basically telling us that the initial renewal requires a 17.89% increase for the trust as a whole. And that there are a lot of things that weigh into this, including the cost of high cost claims, as well as pharmacy costs and overall price increases. Typically, the MEA BT buys the rate down to make it more palatable for school districts, or more affordable rather. Last year, they bought the increase down by 28 million. So this email, it goes on to say that essentially they don't have the 28 million to buy the insurance down like they did last year. So they still have work to do on their end. They have not set a maximum rate, but they are sending a warning. So for those of you who remember, for the past 2 years, insurance has been very kind to this district. We've had increases of less than 2%, which is unheard of in my time here. But that is not going to be the case this year. I expect it to be ugly. I have budgeted 10% across the board. Honestly, I'm hoping it's enough. I looked at our medical loss ratio rate, which is very good. So for those of you listening, medical loss ratio is the amount of every dollar that is spent on claims. So we are approximately at, I want to say 84, 85 cents per dollar for every dollar that we send them. It doesn't sound good, but in the world of insurance, it's very good. So I am hoping that we are the best of the worst, and that we don't have to add additional monies to the budget for health insurance. What I don't want to do is come in with a really high number and have to cut a lot of other things from the budget, only to find that it's better than expected. So I am comfortable with this, and that is what I'm proposing at this point. Questions about health insurance? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was in a meeting on Saturday, and everything that you're saying is true. But my question is, was that an error that they made, that they had 28 million to contribute to buy down last year, and they don't have Did they over calculate
Um,
or overfill the hole?
all it says is there's an absence of a surplus to offset, so I don't know.
I mean, that's big.
It's huge. I mean, they're not saying they don't have any to offset.
Right,
But they don't have the kind of money that they used to offset last year's rate.
right.
So this is just, it's just not going to be like our past 2 years.
And I'm not trying to claim liability on their side. I just don't, I mean, that's a big,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't see you doing that.
Well, thank you. I'd like to think I wouldn't,
I
but.
think we'd gasp.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay.
So tuition in regular instruction. So this year, we have about 70,000 in our budget for tuition. And by tuition, I mean course credits we pay for our staff members by contract. What I noticed this year is that in February, we had spent all of our money for the year for tuition, and we still have summer courses to pay for. So it's time that, it might just be that it's an awful year and that everybody needed to get certification, or maybe this is an indication of things to come, but I increased tuition by 15,000. The next item you see is paid family medical leave. There's been a lot of talk about paid family medical leave. So we are, the state is requiring employers to partake in the paid family medical leave. There are exceptions for school districts and those who were under contract, under collective bargaining contract specifically, when the plan went into effect. So that was October 2024. So for those bargaining units that are under contract, they don't have to start participating until their next renewal. So for us, with the exception of teachers, all of our employees will start to contribute, or will have to start to contribute on their behalf for the FY26. Because teachers don't renew again until 9/1/27, there are no family medical leave benefits in this budget for teachers, but because we are not required to contribute, or they are not required to contribute, either way you have it, during this school year. But all of our other staff members, including subs and anyone else who earns wage, they'll have to be monies set aside or sent in. Main PERS and payroll taxes, that's just an increase based on the increase in salary, so that's 16,000. Lease purchase copiers, if you remember that this fall I came to you and we did a new copier lease. That is the amount, the increase over our last copier lease for the copiers in our school. So that's 10,271. And supplies, regular instructional supplies are up $30,000. So regular instruction, if you add up those things, it's 844,000, which is slightly over the amount of the increase to regular instruction. Any questions?
That supplies line, a typical increase?
Honestly, I have looked at every single budget. It's a typical year. There isn't anything in there, in any of the budgets, that is excessive or above the amounts typically budgeted. It just.
Things are more expensive. I'm just curious if it's like typically what we see each year.
Yep, they're holding, by they, I mean our administrators, they're holding their staff to limits. So I guess the answer is yes. Mhm.
And this also includes the new financial / algebra 2 class.
It's whatever.
Textbooks.
That's like $1,000. I've spent more this year than I spent next year. My issue for where my supplies, it's just the printing costs on the same things we've purchased in the past are more expensive this year. Printing, copy costs are expensive, and then you have printing by publishers, for those consumable materials, and everything, they gave us a warning, it's going up X%. Everything is going up, everything costs more to ship, it costs more to print.
The other thing that we did is, in the director of Angela's budget, the director of curriculum budget, she, to ensure that classes have the necessary supplies for curriculum, she was putting those supplies in her budget. Because we are required to spend a certain amount on instruction, I have forced her to move those supplies in her budget to the regular instructional line. So you'll see a decrease to her budget and you'll see an increase to those instructional lines, but it is better served where it is. The schools cannot get, I have created special accounts for Angela so that nobody can access those funds except for Angela. So
This still allows me to do the bulk purchasing to get the biggest discounts, which is what our quotes are run off of, but then it shows on her line that it's per student costs rather than district universal costs removed from the student, right? That's the way you explained it to me. So in an accounting measure, it's a much more appropriate strategy. But the thing I worried about was making sure we were able to get those bulk discounts. If we have a quote per building, routinely the price is higher. So by consolidating the 4 buildings and looking by grade level and getting 110 rather than we get a discount. So that's, Andrea helped me figure that out.
the next section is special ed, Article 2. These are students who have IEPs, and they are deemed special ed. So that specific expenditure article is up 5.73% or 356,000 and change. The breakdown of it is as follows. Salaries is up 13,000 and change. Health and dental is up by 34,000 and change. Main PERS and payroll taxes is down by 21,000 and change. Special ed professional services, BCBA. So that is, a lot of that is the seed money that we are required to pay. So you've heard us talk about it in the past. We send students who we cannot plan for, or we cannot, what's the better word, Sarah? Program for, thank you. We send them to special purpose private schools. If those students are main care / Medicaid eligible, those special purpose private schools are allowed to bill main care / Medicaid, right? So for those of you who are familiar with how main care and Medicaid work, when there is a Medicaid or main care individual, the feds pay a portion, and then there's another portion that's paid by the state. Years ago, and I honestly don't remember how many years ago, the state or the Department of Education made school districts responsible for that state portion, meaning it was no longer coming out of DHHS. It comes directly from the school district subsidy. So throughout the year, we see those bills quarterly. Sarah will review those bills, and there are pages and pages of dates for these main care Medicaid students, for services such as speech, for services as OT, PT, and then behavioral. So we have to have our portion we have to pay our portion of it. And the way that we pay our portion is they basically deduct it from our subsidy. So in order for us to plan for that deduction in subsidy, we need to budget main care monies. What we have seen is a steady increase in the amount of money that we are paying towards main care and Medicaid services. So we felt it was appropriate to increase. Sarah and I will continue to discuss this as we further review the special ed budgets, but this is a starting point for us. Special ed professional services speech is the next item. That went down by 58,000. We didn't cut anyone, but we hired an employee. Is that how we?
We're contracting for multiple positions this year, instead of employing people by the district, so no benefits are being paid. I would assume that's where that savings is from. We're anticipating to continue with our contracting partners.
The next item is special ed professional services, physical therapy. It's an increase over last year. The person who had the position last year retired, and when we fill the position, that position was 80%, meaning that person only worked 4 days a week. The person.
You said PT, not OT.
Sorry.
Talking about OT.
Yep,
I'm sorry,
no,
Andrea.
PT, no, you're fine, Sarah, thank you. So this is actually PT services that we need in addition to the individual that we have. Gotcha. The next item is tuition, special purpose private schools. Again, this is probably one additional placement. That's roughly what a placement runs. You'll notice it's up $89,692. That is probably a placement without transportation. And their special ed supplies are up by almost 10,000. So overall, you'll see where the items that I've outlined add up to 358,355, which is slightly more than the increase. But then, just a reminder, this is broad strokes only. The next article is CTE instruction. That is the Capital Area Technical Center. So for those of you who've been doing this a while, a few years back, the state decided to fund technical centers directly. It used to be that we used to send them tuition monies. But they get an ED 279 or some version of it like we receive. The only time that we will see additional monies budgeted if the Capital Area Technical Center decides that it can't budget or it can't fund the budget that is needed with the funds received from the state, then they would ask participating districts to pay additional towards their budget. It is my understanding after conversation with Pat, there is no need for school districts to pay additional towards CATC for the FY26 year. That may not be the same for subsequent years. Questions? So that is why it's 0. We are still sending students to the capital area. It's just being funded through state funds directly. Other instruction is basically where extracurricular and co-curricular sits. So that's athletics as well as a lot of our clubs. It is also where our after-school instruction sits. So we have something called credit recovery that's done after hours at the high school, helping students gain credits after the school day. So you will see that the salaries are up 7,100, but if you look 2 spots below, you will see that they are discontinuing use of a software they were using for credit recovery. It's actually a 1-to-1, even though it doesn't look like it, because what you don't see are a few other small things. So anyway, it's those two lines are meant to be a wash. I teased out paid family medical leave for this cost center. So you can see there's the increase of 2,800. Athletic officials, Nate and Christina went in and adjusted the amount that the district pays for officials. For those of you who remember, last year we tweaked the amount that we paid for game workers. And because we weren't sure of what that would look like when we budgeted last year, it came in a little high. So Nate did the work behind the scenes and adjusted those accounts this year to bring us in line with what we're spending for game workers and officials. So you can see a decrease of 10,000. You will see that we added 2 new athletic programs that the board approved. One of them is Unified Sports. That's a $4,900 increase, and Alpine Ski, that's a $4,000 increase. Athletic supplies are up 34,000. Basically, it is, thank you. I was going to say gear, but that's a better word. Gabe. Nate has told me right before the meeting that they are looking at the athletic budget, and there's a lot of cuts that he has available for us to make. So we will look at that once we're done. Once we go on to the next part of our budgeting. The next item that was added to the budget was a 7th grade biz trip. They do a business trip, I believe, downtown. Sarah, can you elaborate on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. We actually work with the Chamber of Commerce here locally in Gardner, and what they do is it's an event where our students go out and they get to experience 3 different businesses, and they're all local, to try to give them a taste of different options, what is in their local community. And we did do a little exploration into Augusta this year to kind of create a variety, but it's an amazing experience. And the local businesses are all on board. The kids get to be hands-on. Like they got to actually sit and help move machinery. They made food. They get to, so they come back just with this wealth of experience and ideas and excitement, and it allows them to be connected to the community. And of course, as you can imagine, taking an entire grade level all over to multiple businesses, it does have some costs associated with it.
The next item is co-curricular transportation. That is up by 4,500. Again, those are the transportation for clubs and basically clubs. Athletic equipment, 5,000. So if you add those together, it adds up to 47,000 and change, approximately what we're up. The next section is Article 5. It's student and staff support. It's a lot of different things. So I have broken out the increase by departments. So for social workers, the increase in salaries was approximately 22,000. Guidance, that's up approximately 18,000. The nurses budget, that is approximately up 25,000. That is only the nurses that are in each of our schools, to be clear on what that is. Salaries, curriculum assessment is the director of curriculum's budget, and as well as the instructional coaches in the line below. Salaries, PLCSS is the professional learning, help me, Angela, PLCSS?
It's basically the recertification committee for our teaching staff.
So the district has a mentoring program, so we're required to have one. So mentors are paid to mentor probationary teachers. In addition, there's a PLCSS committee that's headed by Mary Witten and Patricia Morris, and they help teachers and staff members who are required to have certification go through this certification process. They meet on a regular basis. This includes their stipends as well, as the mentoring stipends for the mentors of our new staff members. So that's what we're at.
And it's required that we have a committee like this. It's
Thank you.
actually required from the state.
Health and dental, the next item, library media is up 21,000. And that does not include, and I'm saying this for Angela's benefit, it does not include the increase of the additional half hour for our library ed techs, in case we are wondering, but salaries, technology is the overall increase of our technology department, which is 4 people, including Terry. Health and dental for all of student staff support is up 47,000. Main PERS and payroll taxes up almost 12,000. Instructional technology software, again, this is where we have moved some software around from Angela's budget into Terry's budget. And that's also some software that is being used in the classroom. So that is up 22,000. Frontline time and attendance, it was sitting in student and staff support. So this is something that my office uses. However, it was basically coded to this because of the sub-function. I have moved it to system administration. So you will see a reduction of 12,700 and change here, but you will see an increase below where my office sits. Supplies technology down 2,300, supplies curriculum down 2,800, and supplies 504 is up 3,000. If you remember, 504 was moved from special ed to the building administrators. They are now overseeing 504 in each of their buildings. We gave them supplies to be able to do what they need to do to support 504 students, such as if a student is colorblind and they need special paper, they would need to buy paper. There are other accommodations that may require supplies. So each of the building administrators has a little bit of a budget to be able to do those things. Questions?
So was that taken from the special ed?
Special ed, it was never in special ed.
Where was it?
It was in 504. But it's now each of the building administrators have their own budget as opposed to a consolidated budget, which is why it went up.
Okay.
But it was never part of special ed. It was just overseen by some of the personnel in special ed. It's important that the two of them are very distinct.
Yeah. Was there ever a 504 budget line anywhere?
Mhm. It was in here, but it, like I said, it increased because instead of one person overseeing it, now we have 6.
Okay.
So. So student and staff support is up 206,000, in line with what the overall increase was. System administration includes the school board. It includes the office of the superintendent. It also includes the business office. That expenditure article is up 23,000 or 2.26%. Salaries are up 22,000. Health insurance is up 7,000. Main PERS and payroll taxes is down approximately 900. Insurance liability, while our overall insurance is up, it is actually down in general liability, which is where the board and the superintendent's office sits. It's just a shift. The budget newsletter is costing us $1,200 more a year to produce. Purchase services are down $1,200 and supplies are up $681 for an overall increase of approximately $23,000. Oops, go ahead.
Forgive me, but what's the budget newsletter?
The budget newsletter is the newsletter that we send to all taxpayers. That booklet that comes out. So we have somebody who puts it together for us, and her, as with all of our prices, have increased. School administration is the office of the principal in each of our schools. That is up overall 100,000, or 5.61%. Salaries are up 58,000, health and dental up 15,000 and change, main PERS and payroll taxes up approximately 10,000. Purchase services are down about 1,000. Supplies and student recognition is up approximately $5,000. There is a sound system request at the middle school for their gymnasium. Currently, there is no public address system in the gymnasium at the middle school, which makes it hard for them to do assemblies and games. And Sarah, I'm just gonna let you speak on that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you covered it. We don't have a sound system. The original sound system that is still living in there, that was when it was built in 1975. They don't even make parts for, and is completely unusable. I think we do a really nice job of kind of trying to use what we have. We've got some rock blockers that are portable, some great speakers we can set up, but it's not really enough to truly encompass the sound. And I know always when we have groups in there, that's feedback we get, is not everybody can truly hear. And since our gym is used a lot by the public as well, it would be really nice to be able to use it not only internally as a school, but also for those who are using that space.
Thanks, Sarah. The last item in school administration are professional dues. It's up approximately 630,000. So that total is in line with the increase to the overall system administration article. Article 7.
$630, not 630,000.
Just numbers are just
So
rolling off
many
my.
zeros.
Repeat that one. Thank you for the correction.
That's okay.
The next article is transportation. Transportation is up overall 126,000, almost 127,000, or 5.06%. Salaries are up 149,000. Health and dental insurance is up 18,000 and change. Paid family medical leave and payroll taxes is up 20,000. Routing software, if you remember, the board purchased or allowed us to purchase, I want to say BusRite, did I get that right? A new routing software. So that is a $16,000 increase. The annual bus lease, and you hear me talk about it, we have, we lease our buses annually from Sear. Basically, we pay them for every roll of the tire, so every mile that we drive, we pay a per mile cost. Doing it this way, we do not have to have a bus garage, we do not have to employ a mechanic, we do not have to keep tires and all of the parts that engines and all the things that we would need to repair the bus. So we found this works best for us. It is an overall increase of 34,000 and change, close to 35,000. Purchased home to school transportation private. We are not using private transportation. We typically use Bill Gordon a lot. So Bill Gordon is a local service that provides private transportation. We are not using them for home to school. However, we are using them for both homeless and SPPS. However, you will see below that I was able to take a reduction of homeless transportation, make a $35,000 deduction from the current year. In addition, we were able to reduce, based on the estimate from special ed, of purchase transportation for special purpose private school students, we were able to reduce that private transportation by almost 65,000. There's a door repair. Apparently the transportation, one of their doors or two of their doors are rotting, and they requested that those doors be replaced. That it was a budget item of approximately $8,000. And a few weeks ago, the last item, we went out to bid for both diesel and gasoline. We don't use much gasoline other than our district trucks. We use mostly diesel, however, we share the transportation, the fuel depot with the city. So while we purchase the fuel for both the city and the district, we are mainly a user of diesel. So based on those fuel bids, I was able to reduce diesel by almost $14,000. So if you add up the things that I just outlined, it's an increase of $124,000.
It's a question, but sure, and I'm sorry because we're more than halfway through, but why do the totals differ from the bold?
The bold totals is the overall amount that it's up. I did not go through penny for penny. I did broad sweeps. So I captured the big ticket items, which is why the bottom line, I just picked up the big fluctuations. Otherwise, if I listed every single fluctuation, we would be here for days.
No, I understand, but it's not included in like a miscellaneous line or something like that.
It's just a lot of little changes that make up the difference. I have shared with all of you who I have shared tonight's documentation. You have a summary budget in that folder. It's 124 pages. There is not detail, but you will be able to see all of the specific accounts for each department and how they increased or decreased. So that is available to you for the district budget. I wanted you to see that in case you had questions, but that is the reason why those don't match.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Facilities maintenance. So facilities maintenance, Article 9 is up over $1 million or 26.33%. This is the first article that has a new staff position. And I didn't say that in any of while we were discussing any of the others because I forgot. But now that I see new position, this is the only new position in our budget. Because of a retirement to the maintenance person, Gabe is requesting someone specifically to clean this office. It's a half-time position. That is both salaries and benefits for that position. Gabe, do you want to chat about that for a second?
Sure. Yeah, we've never really had somebody, well, I shouldn't say never. There used to be somebody years ago, probably when I first started here. That was a couple hours a day to do this building. That person retired. We captured it with one of the other employees. That employee has now retired. We would really like to get somebody here to be dedicated to this building to clean. The person that we use for the maintenance position is always being shuffled around to cover for custodians. So a lot of times it's myself or somebody just trying to come in here. I will say it's put on the staff a lot to do some cleaning. And we really need to go away from that. I just need a half-time person for here that can be dedicated to clean this building.
The next item is property and casualty insurance. This is basically the insurance on our property that is increased. So there's two things going on here. So if you remember last year or in June, we went out to bid for insurance and we asked to move away from our current insurer for a variety of reasons, one of which was that every claim that we had, Gabe and I felt like that we were being nickeled and dimed. So there was an increase with that change. In addition, I have in front of me an email from our new property and casualty insurance provider, basically saying that they're expecting a preliminary increase of 9 to 12% for the upcoming year. So that is why you see such a huge increase. And for those of you who have property bills at home, you've probably noticed your property insurance bill increase. I know that mine has, and that I haven't had any claims. It's just a trend based on what's going on with everything in the property and casualty insurance world, so this is where we are. Additional security, so there's an increase of 51,000 for additional security at the high school. And I'm really not sure how to explain this. So we have a school resource officer that was located at our high school. That is our school resource officer that we contract with Kennebec Sheriff. This year, because of a variety of factors, we felt the need to increase our security at the high school. And we were contracting, in addition to the school resource officer, we were contracting with the city of Gardner. So if that were to continue, that would be an increase of approximately 51,000. And conversations regarding this continue. So I guess that's probably the best way to explain that. So the next item is the new ESCO project, Energy Conservation Project. So for those of you who were at our last budget or our last finance meeting, or the time before, I guess it was our last one, the Finance Committee agreed to move forward with an ESCO project with ECM. The $150,000 represents the first payment in that lease project. Should you move to go forward with that project. Typically, when we do a lease purchase agreement, the first payment is made in the first year, the same way it was made in our copier lease. So I budgeted that, not knowing the project size that you will do and what our rates will be when we go out to find someone to finance the project, or whether or not we're going to do tax-free financing, or whether we're going to do a taxable lease because of potentially looking to sell our buildings or dispose of our buildings rather, because of a school construction project. So there's a lot of things in the air with this. The $150,000 is meant to be a placeholder. The next group of items are things that Gabe had on, for the most part, had on his capital improvement list. I know the first Finance Committee meeting in January, he reviewed the 5-year capital improvement report with the Finance Committee. And these are the things that he included in this budget from that report. The Gardner Area High School roof replacement, $360,000. Gabe, at any point, if you want to stop and explain, just
Yeah.
or share
need to go
more
over
rather. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 roof sections. That's, combined are about 360.
Yep. There are stair treads at the high school that need to be replaced for $6,500. It's a safety issue. There's a door replacement at Helen Thompson for $20,000. Gabe, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's continuing on with exterior door replacements. It's just another batch of them. I'll be honest, for $20,000, we will barely get 2 doors. So that's how expensive these doors are. By the time you do the crash bars and the closers and everything, they're extremely expensive. It's not like a homeowner's regular residential door, unfortunately.
Yep.
Is the door repair at the transportation office the same as the door replacement?
I put it in there, and I don't know if maybe Jeff put it in his budget too, so that maybe it
Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. Thanks.
that's in there.
So are these exterior doors we're talking about?
Exterior, yep, all the doors that are listed on here are all exterior doors, and it's, they're either, most of them are emergency exit doors. I'll be honest, that are completely rotted, and so it's a safety issue. If you can't get out, it's a problem.
So the next item in Gabe's budget is auto scrubber repairs. These are huge machines that are expensive to repair. He has 10,000 in his budget. Exterior door replacement at the middle school for 30,000. Interior doorknob repair at the middle school. That's a safety issue. Gabe, do you want to just?
Yeah, so again, the doorknobs, a lot of them, they're original to the building. We've done a batch of them, and every time we turn around, there's another issue with the doorknob. Some of the money that's there is for rekeying some of the doors, to make sure we can get the doors keyed to the correct code. Yeah, there again, doorknobs for these doors, they're over $1,000 a piece, so this will maybe get 5 doors. So,
And part of that is for lockdowns?
yeah, I mean, there again, if the door isn't working properly, they're not able to keep the door locked in the classroom. The new knobs have like a swipe up function. They're just so much better than they were 40 years ago when they were installed.
Carpet replacement at LER Riverview and the middle school for $10,000 each. Emergency lights at the middle school. I'm going to speak to it because Sarah's not here, so both Sarah and Karen at LER, we talked during our budget meetings. When the power goes out, their emergency lighting is not working, and in their interior of their building, it is dark, and it's a safety issue. I would request that the board allow Gabe and I to find money in this year's budget to fix emergency lights for middle school and LER because it is a safety issue. We can't have kids in pitch dark when we lose power, so that's something that we would like to take off the budget and find monies in this year's budget.
I would say if there's anything in next year's budget that is safety related that can be done in this year's budget, if we have resources
Yeah.
available to
So
do
the-
that,
So the
Definitely.
problem with
we should do that.
this year's budget, we've already taken out a lot of things for this year's budget. One of those things was the bathrooms at the middle school that ended up coming out of this budget. We fixed part of the roof out of this year's budget. We paid the engineers for the
EMC.
School applications.
not EMC, but the school, who is the?
Yeah, it's
I'm sorry, I
Doesn't
screwed it
matter.
up by saying a
You
name.
did.
I'm sorry.
So we paid an engineering firm to come and look at
Yeah.
our buildings to help
Right.
us submit school
Yes.
construction
Yep.
projects.
Yep.
So that was a hefty bill. We had something else. Sorry, and it's escaping me.
And I know we've done that, but I'm also, if we have some
We've had a lot of
resources and
things.
some things are already out that we're not going to do.
Yep.
I thought the
Can we
bathrooms were
just-
in last year's budget before we approved this year's budget.
So by the time we got around to doing the work, I can't hold money out of last year's budget. That work wasn't done until summer, so it ended up coming out of this year's budget. Because there were so many conversations about the bathrooms that it kept getting put off, and then by the time the project started, it was summer. And as of June 30th, monies for last year become carry forward. I can't cut checks from last year for projects in this year's budget.
And so with that in mind, I don't want to do that again. If
No,
there's anything
no,
that we can do.
nope.
I want us to,
Yeah, how do
But
we-
sometimes
How do we avoid that?
conversations take,
It was all the discussions and delays, and we stopped actually manufacturing, and then it was pushed off, and because they can't be done when children are there, so we ended up pushing it off. And by the time we substantially completed the project, it was after the deadline.
So were we able to capture those funds that we were going to use in any way, or did they just carry forward?
they just became part of carry forward.
and so while it's our job to, I don't want to
Yeah.
say anything political, but while it's our job to listen to constituents, it's also our job to be sure that we manage our resources effectively. So if we're missing timelines, we need to know that. And if we're gonna get so deep into controversy that we can't do our job, we need to remember that we have a job to do, and we have to be able to move forward as a board.
The problem with doing that is Gabe had other projects in this
I
year's budget for other things,
totally
and now he
understand.
can't do that, so
Right.
now that's part of this. So it's kind of a
So-
snowballing effect.
It is, and we need
knew
to
that
get
before
past
now,
that.
though.
Mhm.
Yeah, we need to find a way to get beyond that.
Yeah.
It's not good for us.
I don't remember, the middle school lights, door replacement at LER, 10,000, again, exterior door. We have a problem with the gym floor at LER. We've always had a problem with the gym floor at LER. That's 38,000 to fix that. Does Peter, Karen, or Gabe wanna briefly talk about that?
It's been on the books for 18 years, Karen
years.
says.
We
So
just
let's name the gym for the Karen
Right.
Moody Gymnasium.
Right, so we, it's the same project we did last year at Riverview, because Riverview and LER are built a year apart.
Same
So we're
floor,
doing the same exact type
Same,
of
same,
floor
same.
at LER as we did down at Riverview. Could be a different color scheme, doesn't have to be the same, but it's a similar poured rubber floor.
Is
I
this
saw
a, is this the same floor that oozes, or is this a different
No,
floor?
this
No.
This is the
floor that
oozing
is-
floor.
Well, this is, so the oozing floor is
Oozing
the
building.
cafeteria.
Oh,
Okay.
The
sorry.
new cafeteria floor, that's still a problem.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, but this is the gym floor, that, the reason for the gym failure, I think it was just installed improperly back.
Cafeteria failure or the gym
No,
failure?
sorry, the gym failure.
Gym.
The gym, yeah. So 30 years ago when they installed it, similar with the paint that's in that
Yeah.
building that peels off the wall. Things were short, there were shortcuts that they took, and there was definitely a shortcut.
And it really has been that way for that long.
And it's been that
And
way for a long time.
It's amazing that it even knew it was
So the other,
sick.
my other favorite topic of conversation is our heat pump problem at Helen Thompson. That has been a problem since we opened the building.
The problem child.
Mhm.
Every family has
Um,
one.
For those of you who heard us discuss during, when we had our Easter monies, we soaked a ton of money, federal monies into replacement of these heat pumps. Basically, the building runs by heat pumps, none of which we can buy parts for. And it has been expensive, so in addition to the hundreds of thousands of dollars we put in heat pumps, there's also another 15,000 for the heat pump compressor at Helen Thompson. There's also a heat pump compressor repair at the high school for $8,000. Replace insulated panels in the C wing at the high school. Gabe, will you remind us what?
And that, there again, that's a continuation, we do a batch every year. They're replacing the old panels that are rusted through on primarily C wing and the A wing. And they are deteriorating. There are spots with the panels, you can see through them. So this is another batch just to try to,
So when you can see through them, what's directly on the back side?
all it is, it's a 1-inch panel, so there's steel on each side with a 1 inch as a foam, and that's your outside wall. So in the classrooms, there are spots where the panels that deteriorated on the edges. That there are spots that you can see through, we just keep trying to slide the panel over, but they're just, the building is over 60 years old.
When the building was built, oil was probably a nickel.
I know,
So they
right?
didn't care how much
Right.
it cost to heat the
It'll
building.
be
Now
fine.
that oil, however, or natural gas is expensive, having walls that you can see through, a little bit of a problem when it comes to our building
Yeah,
envelope
and
and
that is
heating.
the only insulation in that whole building, that is it.
Well, you can kind of see by, I mean, I didn't know what you just said, but you can kind of see there's just not a thickness there.
There's
It just
nothing.
isn't. Look at the building.
The problem with the high school is that it is older than everybody in this room.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
anyway. The next, sorry, I lost where I was. Heat pump compressor, valve and actuator replacement at LER. I assume that's a ventilation part, $5,000. Emergency lights at middle school. The other emergency lights above should have said the high school. So these are actually, the $10,000 are actually the middle schools. Playground repairs at LER. Karen or Gabe, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, we could both speak
Yeah,
towards
go
it,
for
but the playground is, it's original to the school, I believe. So it's over 30 years old. Right now, there's at least 2 slides that,
This one, the curly slide.
yeah, one slide that is completely broken. That I cannot get a new one to replace it. The $10,000 will not give them a new playground, but it'll at least try to repair what's there. And I mean, maybe the parent teacher organization can put some money towards some part of it or fundraising, and we can get some more for it. But it's just, again, pretty much everything that's in my budget is pretty much just repairs.
So is this the playground on the left or the one on the
It's
behind?
the little one behind for the pre-K kindergarten.
Somebody
playground.
came over a weekend and did something heavy on that slide. So Gabe has put a piece of plywood at the top so the kids can't go down the slide, and there are 2 places on that slide that are really cracked.
That's so
So
sad.
we've had caution tape on it since, I don't know, November.
Yeah, November.
I'm sorry, that stinks for the kiddos.
Even if we can get paint for that playground, just to paint some of those poles again so that it matches and it doesn't look dingy. Some of that just needs a refresh.
Yes. Yeah.
Eventually, it'd be great to have a little bit more equipment on that playground. And we did move the fence last year, so
Yep.
it's been wonderful this year to have more grass for the.
Yep.
Because you're always telling kids, no running on the wood chips, because that's where all the play equipment is. No
right.
running on the pavement. Well, now they have no place to run.
Right.
Well, maybe if we eventually have the consolidated elementary school, we'll have plenty of new playground equipment.
We should have so much playground equipment that they don't know what to do with themselves.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. The next items are 2 fire panel replacements. There's one at LER and there's one at Riverview. One is 11,000, the other one is 12,600. They are both out of compliance. The item in between those two is I can't say the word.
Masha.
Thank you. Naja, did I say it right? Naja, got it. Trim replacement at LER for $10,000.
Get birds living.
What does an out of compliance fire panel mean?
Out of compliance means we are not to code. Again, I'll speak, those are my 2 old fire panels, they're original to the buildings. They're out of compliance, so they're written up as a code violation. So they need to be fixed. They will still alarm when we need them, but to be able to reset the panels, we have to do what they call a hard restart. And pull the power to get them to reset and reset them that way. So again, they still will work, they still alarm, they still call, the communication's fine, but they're over 30 years old.
Gabe and I were talking upstairs before the meeting, and when I started here, we had 3 new elementary schools. And I still refer to them as our new elementary schools. Our new elementary schools are now 30+ years old. They're the age of my son, so I guess they're not as new as we'd like to think. Anyway. The next item is paving various for $20,000. It's just spot patches. He may be able to fix a couple of holes if we're lucky, but that's what he has in for paving. Siding replacement at Pittston for $30,000 and boiler replacement for Pittston for $30,000. I'm gonna let you speak to both
Yep,
of those.
Sure, yeah, Pittston, if anybody's driven in, on the gym side, there's the actual composite siding that they put. It's the same type of siding that's out at Helen Thompson that we've replaced out there already. It's falling right off the building. So that's the section, and then the upper addition that we did also at Pittston, and it's the same siding. When they did one, they did the other, so they're both over 30 years old. And we would basically rip the old siding there and just do vinyl that matches the rest of the school that's there. Helen Thompson, we've replaced that siding over the years, and this is the last section that's on the kitchen side. So nobody sees it, so that's why we've always bumped it out of the budget, and I just placed it back in there this year. Again, it's the composite siding just falls right off.
So between that, there's the boiler replacement at Pittston. Will you also speak to that?
Yeah, so the boiler replacement, this is to replace the primary boiler in the upper boiler room for the K1 wing. So this boiler was installed during the last energy upgrade that we had, but the placement of the boiler is the problem. It's placed down in a sewer pit where all of the sewer is held before it's pumped from there to the main sewer line to send it out of the building.
So the fumes in the sewer pit are corroding our boiler.
Yeah.
So it
Is the-
needs to be replaced.
So we would,
Pumped up.
right, so if, I'm sure not a lot of you are aware at that building, when they did the addition for the K1 wing, they put a pump up sewer station because they couldn't get to the public sewer line. So the sewage pumps from there through the building to a mop closet down by the cafeteria.
Do you have a lift pump?
Yes, it's a huge lift pump that's in the floor, and that's,
Hey, man,
there is.
I live in the
It's
lowest
a
house in
terrible
town. We have a
system.
lift pump.
Yes, it's a terrible system.
It's a terrible thing to
That
have a
was
lift pump.
noted in
Yeah.
the new school walkthroughs and applications that we did.
Oh,
Um,
no.
But they decided to put a boiler in the same pit area.
Were they thinking
So
of
we
that
would,
pump?
we would remove that area, we would put a secondary floor to bring it up where the secondary boiler is, so it'd be on that level and not down next to the sewer pump.
Are we responsible for the lift pump or is the city?
Yes,
responsible?
no, that's ours.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, we've already replaced those pumps a couple times too.
Sorry it took me so long to realize that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was not here when they did the design for the addition, would not have been my first
that
choice.
stinks in so many ways. Man.
Gabe touched upon the siding replacement at HT, that's at 30,000 as well. There's a roof shingle project, that's in the plan at the middle school for 48,000. Is that the section of the roof that leaks, Gabe?
Yeah, so that section, couple of the windstorms last year, we had quite a few sections on that piece of roof blow off. So we've done on that one 4 patch jobs already. So that would be the roof section. It's over 20 years old and it's just regular asphalt shingles. Definitely over its life.
The next item is Hoke Field fence repair at the high school, that's $20,000. Door replacements at this office for $20,000. The next item on this list is my ask. It's a generator for $30,000. And the reason that we're asking is the last time that we had a multiple day
Oh, yes.
power loss, it was a struggle to figure out how we were going to pay our 500 staff members or our 400 staff members. I understand this is probably not the year to ask for a generator, but it is very nerve-wracking when you can't find power. How to figure out how to pay your staff members who are also going through power outages and their own. So that is why that is on this list, to be able to power this building in the event of a multiple day power outage. Door replacement transportation. Molly, that is a great catch. Thank you. I didn't even notice it. So if you add up all of the projects that we've listed in Gabe's budget, that adds up to 1.162 million. So that accounts for Gabe's increase, or the increase to facilities. Article 10 is debt service. We have no new school construction, so there is no money in that expenditure article. The next article is 11 other commitments, which is basically community and school lunch. We do not, because the state is providing lunch for all students, we do not have to close the school lunch portion. What we're getting from the state pays enough to support our school lunch program, which was not the case prior to the state paying school lunch for students. So if ever the state were to stop paying lunch for all students, the district would have to, in all likelihood, budget a portion of that as well. What is in there, however, is $500 for the food pantry. The guidance office had in their, at the high school, had in their budget $500 for students with food insecurity. They could come in and grab something off the shelf in the pantry for those who are hungry. Since it is not a function of guidance, I moved it to the food pantry where it belongs under other commitments. So that is the $500 increase you see in Article 11, other commitments. So if you total up all of the things that I gave you, it is approximately or near the total that we are up, $2.7 million. Questions about what we shared? Sure.
Going back to the student and staff support in Article 5, learning the PLCSS are required. I know it wouldn't affect this budget, just trying to think ahead. Would opportunity culture change that in any way? Does it fulfill it, or is it, okay, it's not?
Yeah,
Okay.
separate requirement. It really is strictly related to their certification practices. So it's a certification line that central and building administration can't oversee. So it has to actually be overseen separately. And actually, like, for example, when a teacher goes to recertify after 5 years and they've uploaded their paperwork, our office, PLCSS office, has to upload paperwork and there's like a stamp of approval, so they can't pay their money until our PLCSS office has done that.
So they're
If they're renewing within our district, it's different if you're like a brand new, coming out of college and you haven't been hired yet. But that's the way our system runs, and yeah, I wish it could be the same, because there'd be greater efficiency there, but it's probably good to have that. I also don't wanna check all those boxes. Mary does an enormous amount of work.
She does.
They have a whole office at the high school that they have to maintain paper copies and digital copies of everything.
And she has been invaluable in helping work out the kinks between certification of our staff members and the Department of Education Certification Office. So they do, whenever we have issues with certification, Mary is usually the first call that I make to see what she can work through, so.
And we do.
That sounds like apples and oranges completely.
Yeah, it
I lumped
really
them into
is.
one and it's not,
It-
so.
We have no capacity so that they can get recertified more easily. That way it's intersected. The other thing I'd say is, our mentor staff have to be trained, so we do have historically every other year used title funds to pay for the training, because it's outside of contract hours. We do it in the summer, so there's no classroom instruction for the mentor training. People retire, we need to renew them after a certain number of years, they're required to have a refresher training. So that is a commitment, but it comes from our federal funds every other year rather. We have those, rather than our local funds, so that's the other intersection.
And I think she also helps with the certification of administrators. Do that, you run your certification?
She has been called in to help, but we do have an administrator, I mean, like Karen and Tiffany, right? There are regional and reps.
From the board.
Thank you, can you say it better
It's the
than me?
Kennebec Consortium for School Administrators is a group of us that meet 3 times a year to review certification plans for administrators. And once we approve them, then the director will contact this certification, and then it just hits the.
Pushes the button.
Yep, she pushes the button, and then administrators can pay their fees and be recertified.
So it's a parallel structure, but for administrators regionally, we have to do it for teachers locally.
Teachers and as well as ed techs, paraprofessional staff. Other questions, Molly?
I know, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Anyone else can jump in. The budget newsletter, are we required to do that in print?
We are required to have a document. We use the budget newsletter not only to send out the budget, but it's also one of the feel-good things that we do of all the things that are going on. So this is something that the board has elected to do. Could we do it another way? Possibly. We could possibly do it electronically, but not everyone.
Could we print fewer and have it be?
So it is delivered to every resident of our 4 communities. So, and then I usually buy or purchase enough to have them available at our budget meeting when we go through. So I'm not throwing boxes and boxes of budget newsletters away, but that is where they're used.
Okay.
So we get the count from the postal service regarding the residents, and then I usually add maybe 100 to it. Some to have in the town offices and some obviously to have at our budget meeting for residents who appear, so. So that is the cost. Well, that is not the cost, that is the increase, sorry.
Right.
Whether it's for now or not, you said later conversation, but the additional security, was our contract with Kennebec to include those services? Or MOU?
So the MOU for the school resource officer, yes, that is there, that is in there. However, there is an additional, there was an additional officer that was asked to be on site. And whether or not this continues into next year is uncertain. So putting money into the budget is, taking money out of the budget is easier than putting money into. So we built the additional amount that we were paying for these additional services into the budget, hoping that we could have additional clarity by the time we set our budget.
So would we have 2 officers present?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. And we, okay.
It's the hope that we will not need that, but
But that we will have steady and certain coverage.
Mhm.
That's what.
Well, with our, I thought that with our MOU, we would have steady coverage.
we do have steady coverage.
Okay,
There was need for an additional officer,
Yes.
additional security, in addition to the school resource officer.
Yes,
You know it.
I do. Yes. It's important to say that just perfectly. But yes.
I'm trying.
No, me.
No.
I'm taking the heat.
If there's a situation at the middle school, then the officer would go to the middle school.
The
So,
officer visits all of our schools and makes connections.
SRO
Yep.
would go to any of the 6 schools
Okay.
where there's
so if that's the case, you want to have the additional officer at the high school? Or there were
The
specific
additional,
incidents?
the additional officer was there for an additional reason. Whether or not we will need to have an additional officer there in the future is unclear. Questions?
Well,
Sorry, I don't.
I have a question, and you may not be able to answer it. I'm looking at another piece of paper, the enrollment.
Yep, I'm gonna go over
Okay,
those next.
okay.
I'm not done, sorry. I'm sure you wish I was done, but I'm not done.
no wishes.
So we've gone through, sorry, Tony.
I'm so sorry, Andrew. Could I, just want to double check on the BCBA costs in Article 2? Are we seeing, maybe I missed this, seeing sort of the savings we'd anticipated by having them available?
So that is, most of that is really the increase in seed monies.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the special purpose private schools require a BCBA to service those students who are placed, then they get to bill Medicaid rather, main care. And then we have to pick it up on the flip side. Sarah, do you want to add additional?
About seed or about BCBA?
Either or.
So maybe BCBA, because that was your question, Tony?
Yeah, thanks.
We have a new to us BCBA this year who is providing services across the district. We had a challenging start to the year this year in a variety of places. I think we've finally seen many behaviors settle down for a variety of reasons. I don't think we can contribute that solely to the BCBA, but they've been supportive. They've been present, they've been accessible. But I don't think we can say this is the thing that fixed the things.
So the seed reports that we get from the state, basically, I mentioned, they basically break out main care services and in BCBA, speech and language and OTPT. When I have to account for the reduction in subsidy, I actually have to hit expenditure lines, so I have to add up the pages and pages of costs for all of these kids, and it has to hit specific lines. So if the special purpose private school is charging Medicaid $100,000 or $50,000, that is the line that I have to hit in our budget. And the reason that we want it to go that way, want it to record it that way, well, because I'm required to. But, and well, I guess I'm not required, I'm not required to, but this is the reason, because special ed in the funding formula is basically expenditure driven. So those expenses from this year will actually go in to reimbursement for a future year through the ED 279. And it's designated that way. It is still one of our expenses, even though we're paying the main care / Medicaid match. And those costs are increasing. Go ahead, Sarah. Just go ahead, Molly.
What is the acronym BCBA?
Board Certified Behavioral Analyst.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I tried to do that all week.
When I was reviewing the
See,
budget
gets
with
lost.
Andrea, I went, I'm not spending that much on a BCBA. It's seed and BCBA are appearing
Combined,
together. So
right.
one is a staff person that's here part-time and one is what we're budgeting for seed to cover.
What
that.
we're seeing is a dramatic rise in seed money for BCBA's.
So sort of like the placements can then say, we need to activate our BCBA's and we have to cover the.
Right.
And the difficult part about it is, they can bill us from, whenever they, occasionally when Sarah reviews, she'll find, transactions from years ago. So Sarah, and it's, how many hours they spent with the kid's name, the date of service. So going through these pages and quarterly seed report takes Sarah, I don't know, Sarah, a day?
Takes us less time now that we streamlined it.
But still a significant portion of.
The reason why we go through it is that occasionally there are errors and sometimes we're required to pay it anyway.
Really? I
Yes.
found your mistake and I have to pay for it? Are you kidding?
But since it affects our subsidy,
Okay.
the two of us are, we overlook, anyway.
Thank you, yeah. No, I know you've gone over it and I just wanted to make sure I understood it because
Yeah.
it's a big
Thank you for keeping us moving.
section of the
Moving us whole.
increase and yeah, I appreciate you and the BCBA. So that we have, cool.
The next item that I shared with you is a spreadsheet or a document that shows our enrollment comparison from last February to this February. And what it's meant to point out that in a period of 1 year, we have lost 91 students district-wide. Now, we didn't see this kind of increase or decrease in our ED 279 because if you remember, and I'm sure you all do, when they do the ED 279, they do enrollment. It's a 2-year average, so it slows any increase or decrease down. So we only saw a 50-something student decrease in our ED 279, but we can see what's really happening. So on this page, You have it by school and by grade. On the next page, it's by grade comparison throughout the district.
Honestly, I think as board members, we really need to look at these numbers and see what's happening within and across the district, because some of these are significant shifts.
Sorry, you're saying, so for the ED 279, they're counting about, they're still counting, what, how am I saying that?
So they took last year's count and this year's count and they used an average. So we didn't get hit with the 91 student decrease this year.
Oh,
I expect to see another significant
91 is-
increase next year.
That's a significant number, though.
Base that on like March 1 or something.
The count for the ED 279, they do, the ED 279 is based on an October 1st count. The count that I have in front of you is the last enrollment reports that I received, that Stephanie did, that you should have received. You should all be receiving. I don't think on the bottom it has various comparisons. However, I don't think it does. I don't think it compares a year ago is what I'm really trying to say. So I thought I would share that with you because Terry and I do a lot of the state reports and we're seeing it in our annual reports. And I wanted you to see it as well.
And this is, I mean, these are significant numbers.
Yep. The last document that you see, when I shared with Pat, the document above, she reminded me of an enrollment trend that she does.
Yeah.
She did an 8-year enrollment trend. It was actually 9. And I just updated it to include these figures. So you see another document that's landscape, like the one right on the screen.
Oh, look at that.
I know.
How did that happen?
That's showing that enrollment trend over time. I think at one point when I first started here, we had 2,400 kids, and now
I believe that. I
we're.
remember those days.
I would not be surprised if we slide below 1,800 before the end of the year, but that is where we are.
256 students.
What do we ask about the drop in enrollment?
I would start that conversation with the superintendent.
Well, but we've done, in the years that I've been here, we've done cohort studies, we've done live birth studies, we've done all kinds of
But
things to project.
91 people in 1 year. I mean, we
Yeah.
heard, oh, sorry.
No, sorry, I have a bad habit of getting excited and interrupting. so-
Getting excited.
Weird. I do it all the time.
Sandra's jam.
So it's not just while this looks terrible, this is not just an MSAD11 problem.
No,
It's not only a Maine problem, it's a global problem.
Yeah.
I was reading an article about the decrease in birth rates across the world. So there's a lot going on. And I am sharing it with you. I don't think there's any single reason here why we've lost 91 students. But I do think it's a conversation that the board needs to have as we look at our facilities and replacing our facilities and how we want to move forward.
And what our needs are. I was talking to the superintendent today and we were having this very conversation about when it comes to how are we gonna close the gap, our financial gap in our budget. We don't have a decline in enrollment across any building or any grade level. So we really need to spend some time studying these numbers to make good decisions so that we are finding some way to meet the needs and close our gap.
If you look at the page above that's on the screen, you'll see, 10 from LER. That's certainly
Yeah.
not enough. I was gonna say for a classroom, but actually next year it is enough for us to reduce some staff at some of our buildings. So, but 2 here, 17 there, 7 in another
20
school.
here,
It's
yeah.
spread throughout the district.
We have to look on the back end for bubbles, what's coming, so that, and we just have to make decisions for
Do we know how many people are withdrawing for like homeschooling? Is it that? Those?
I don't have this
That's an
figures, but
Angela
Angela can
question.
tell you.
So we can prepare that information that you're asking for. Generally, we know, we are, our office manages all homeschooling applications. The state manages homeschooling applications and approves them. We keep a record of homeschooling. And sometimes we know why, not all the time. But we do have that information. We also have the number of students, and that's included in your monthly enrollment report that you get from Stephanie Hoodlet. The number of students who are homeschooled but receive services. There are a number of families who homeschool their students, but then say, well, I want them to attend for math, or I want them to have special services, or I want them to go to band and music, and we offer that. And they can also apply for like extracurriculars. So there are a number of students who are homeschooled but still access services in our district. So there's that information. There's a lot of movement, a lot of housing transient movement that happens. You've made some decisions about high school students. So there's some of that that's going on if they want to transition into adult ed as a young student, or other avenues. But we do try to monitor for that as much as we can. We probably won't have it exact. There's some that we don't know why they unenrolled, right? Like we try to, through the child find thing, try to figure it out, but we can provide you a general percentage of students doing this, percentage doing that.
Sorry, the heat turned on. Where can I find that information again?
We can provide it. We have to keep records of it, but we could provide, if the board wants a report, we can create a report for you.
I would appreciate it.
And just to say, Steph, Hoodlet's that spreadsheet, it says homeschool students, so from last month to access district programs, it's 5. But that's just a monthly number.
Right.
And every month that's updated.
Yeah.
And there's also homeschool students that return to,
There are, yep, even mid-year.
so it's
Some
not a,
students leave, some students return.
it's a fluid number.
We have some students out for medical purposes, getting tutoring, that kind of thing.
So as I mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, we've been meeting with board members. We've been meeting with administrators. We've identified some cuts. We certainly have a list going. We weren't prepared tonight to share those cuts with you. We wanted to give you an overview of where we are rather. We will begin to compile that list of cuts. We would like board members to start thinking about where they foresee our budget coming in. That this is the budget conversation tonight. This is just the overview, and we will need to do the hard lifting at subsequent meetings.
So I would like to suggest that it's a 22% increase, correct? If we taxpayers, then you get to the right place. 22% increase to taxpayers if we do nothing. And we don't feel comfortable as a district providing something in double digits. So we need to get at least to 9 or 8%. And then we need to be thoughtful and not just make hair trigger suggestions, but we need to look at the information that Andrea has provided for us. We need to come prepared with thoughtful questions. And the administrative team in the meantime is going to be looking at what they can do. The important thing for us to remember in my conversation today with the superintendent is that none of this is anybody's fault. So if the administration comes to us with a cut at any level, this is not Angela's problem. It's not her fault. These are very hard decisions for anybody within the district to make. So we need to be very thoughtful with how we look at the information as a finance committee, as a board, and then how we ask questions and come prepared to talk about these things. It's very important.
The kind of cuts that we are looking at making are not going to be achieved by cutting staples or copier paper or a software program or two. So there are very interesting conversations going on behind the scenes that we will begin to share with you. It is also this time that we start having weekly finance committee meetings. So Pat and I chatted this afternoon. So starting next Tuesday, that is Pat's preference that we meet weekly on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Until our budget is set. As a reminder, our budget needs to be set before April break, so that we can meet the statutory requirements as far as doing what we need to do as far as the legal things that we need to do to start the budget process. So there's a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. So if everyone would start marking their calendars for Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, we will meet weekly.
I'd also like to suggest that we are, as we're doing this, while none of us wants our taxes to go up, I pay pretty darn high taxes in Gardner. And I don't love it, and I hate it when my tax bill goes up, and I dread a reval. But we are not here, and we consider what taxpayers, we consider how our budget is gonna impact taxpayers because we're all taxpayers. However, our work is for kids, 100%. Our work is for students. And what can we do with the limited resources that we have, provide the best possible education for every single student within this district? How can we do that? So
And
thoughtfully, let's do that.
and put out a budget that will pass at referendum.
Absolutely.
That is,
And that we're proud of.
yep.
It's also a
Yep.
matter of, what can we be proud of?
As our student enrollments decline, our connection to we have connection or direct connection to fewer and fewer households. So it's important that we put out a budget that
It doesn't,
that will gain support.
yes, we need that.
And, going through the list of things that we need, there is nothing outrageous. There are, with the exception of that half-time staff member, there are no new staff members in this budget. It is existing staff. It's just, we have old buildings and we have things that need to be addressed.
Does the half-time position have benefits along with it? Is that a salary only?
It's just salary only.
Is that so that it could be contracted as well, or?
No, it's just for a 4-hour person, 5 days a week, but I think we have discussed potentially not needing
Joanne?
somebody 5
Joanne?
days a week.
Joanne, I can give you a ride anytime. That's okay.
Yeah, one thing that
Okay.
I think we don't compliment ourselves on is that we have no debt.
Correct.
A lot of schools have a substantial
Substantial debt.
debt.
Yes.
And a lot of money's going towards interest payments, which really isn't going towards anything except being able to get what you wanted. But I think that we need to, when people start questioning us, I think that needs to come up, and that needs to be one of our
We could lead with that. I
lines.
think that's really important.
We do have debt. We don't have debt on any of our buildings. The
Mhm.
debt that we have is on our last construction project that we did 7 years ago, and we still have 7 or 8 years ago. We still have as many years ahead of us to pay. So we did I want to say a $3.7 million construction project
Mhm.
to update, similar to the one that we're looking at doing with ECM.
Right.
Those payments are actually, the amount of those payments are actually increasing. So that is the debt that we have. Other than that, in our copiers, we do not have, you're right, we do not have any debt payments.
When will the ECM project be on our agenda? Again, is that still being considered for this coming year?
Well, I mean, it definitely there needs to be some more conversation about it for sure. I mean, they listed out almost I think about $35 million worth of projects that could be done over time. But you know, the more each project is pushed off, the more that project will cost. That's the same issue we run into every year when we keep pushing. That's why my capital improvement goes up every year. Things get more and more expensive, so.
While we're talking about the budget, I just want to say something right now, that there is nothing in this budget to support the school health clinic.
No.
Nor are we able to take any funds from them because of the type of financing that we have on our loans. So if you were listening to our conversations about projects, if we do tax-free financing, or the bank that we choose does, there's tax incentive financing. The rate is reduced for us. However, there are IRS implications on building use, and one of them is not being able to rent our facilities to certain vendors. So as long as this school-based health clinic, as long as we're not charging them a lease or rental, that is, they can operate in our facilities. But I just, like I said, since we were talking about things, and since I didn't mention the school-based health clinic, and since it is such a contentious topic, I just wanted to say right up front, there is nothing in here, nothing in our budget to support or to fund this clinic in any way or means.
Correct. Dispel the rumors and speak the truth.
The last item, oops, sorry, I shouldn't even, are we done with budget? I'm just moving right on.
You go right ahead, girl. You're on a roll.
So the last item on the agenda was the update with the regarding the modular the purchase of the modular at Pittston. And the last board conversation we had regarding, the last finance meeting, we probably spoke a little bit, or I probably spoke a little too frankly with the board. And we probably should have gone into executive session to discuss some of it, because if it was advice from council. But there's a letter in a separate folder regarding the letter that accompanied the payment that you authorized to be sent to our current leasing company. So you can read it in your free time, but I wanted to share it with you. That check and that letter was delivered last week. We have yet to hear any response from the company. And when the attorneys do, I will share that with you, but that is where things stand. Concerns?
Is any of that included in this coming budget in anticipation?
So either way, we are either going to have to pay annual lease payments on the budget, or we're going to have to pay off that purchase. So yes, there's $60,000 in here, because one way or another, we're going to have. Any other questions? Madam Chair?
I would say we're ready to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, administrators, for being here.
Comes to 7.